Okay, so this is Lab 5, Aqueous Reactions and Net Ionic Equations, where we will study solution properties and net ionic equations. So for this experiment, we're going to be working on the laptop, and this is what a laptop is. This is what we call a laptop. So for the first part, we're going to be using lead-2 nitrate and potassium iodide. So we're going to start by putting a few crystals of each in their spots right here in this box. So I'm going to use a spatula to put a few crystals on the laptop. So this is solid lead nitrate, a few crystals. And then we're going to, let's get these in there. Okay, so first we're going to mix them together dry, and you're going to observe what happens. So you push them together, mix them together. And here's where you observe what happens in your lab report. So now, for the second part, after doing your observation, I'm going to add a few drops of water using this dropper and some DI water to the solids here. Okay, let's add a few drops of water. Whoop, a little too far. But you'll notice that something happened. This dropper. There we go. A few too many drops of water. But now record your observation of what happened. Okay, so now we stir this after observing a little bit and see what happens. You can see it stays pretty yellow. Okay. Next, we're going to take some DI water and use this second table, where we start with a few drops of water in the center, right here. Okay. And then we're going to place some of the crystals of the lead-2 nitrate and the potassium iodide on the sides, but not touching the water yet. So add a few crystals. So, ooh, remember, not in it, but next to it. And then we're going to add some potassium iodide on the other side. But remember, not in it, just next to it. Okay, so next to it. So now we're going to first push in the lead-2 nitrate into the side of the puddle. It's going to absorb there. Now we're going to push in the potassium iodide and see what happens. Just kind of watch. Okay, so as you can see, there was an immediate reaction with the water there present. So based on your observations, write in your lab report what you think this means. Okay, so for part 2, we're going to be looking at some aqueous reactions. So we're going to continue using the laptop. So what we're going to do is we're going to add, first, we're going to have lead-2 nitrate and potassium iodide, and we're going to mix them here. We're going to continue doing that all throughout this whole grid. Okay, so for part 2, we're going to be observing some aqueous reactions. So we're going to start using the laptop again, and we're going to match each one of these compounds or solutions together and observe their reactions. So we're going to start in this top left corner with lead-2 nitrate and potassium iodide. So we're going to add 1 drop of each right in between the white and the black. Okay. And we do this because we want to observe color change and if there's a precipitate formed. So the black can show the precipitate and the white background can show the color change. So then we're going to add 1 drop of the other solution involved, which is potassium iodide. Okay, so 1 drop And then we want to observe. All right. So you can see and write in your lab report if you observe a color change, precipitate, and just your overall observations of the reaction of these two. Okay, let's just continue down this lead-2 nitrate line. So I'm going to add another drop going across of lead-2 nitrate. Right in between the black and white line. Okay, or somewhat. And this time we're going to be using, that is not sodium chloride, we're going to be using sodium chloride. Okay, so let's add a drop of sodium chloride. Okay, and observe what happens. All right.
Sodium chloride?
Yes.
And what?
And lead-2 nitrate. So we're continuing down this lead-2 nitrate line. And we're mixing each one, just matching them up. Okay, so observe your reactions here for this one. All right, moving on, we're going to combine the lead-2 nitrate and the sodium phosphate. So sodium phosphate and lead-2 nitrate here. Okay, so we're at a line in between. There we go. So that's the lead-2 nitrate. Now we're going to be using the sodium phosphate, sorry, sodium sulfate, my bad. Okay, so we add 1 drop of sodium sulfate and see what happens. Okay, record your observations for that reaction of lead-2 nitrate and sodium sulfate. Okay. Once again, we're going to be using the lead-2 nitrate with, this time, the sodium phosphate. So drop that right in the middle between the two. Best to get it in between. And then this time we're using the sodium phosphate. So now I'm going to add 1 drop of sodium phosphate to the lead-2 nitrate. 1 drop. All right. Looks like there was a small thing inside if you look closely. Okay. Still continuing. We have a few more with the lead-2 nitrate. Oh. Put that over here. Correct? This is sodium acetate?
Yes.
Okay. So, we put the 1 drop of lead-2 nitrate in between the black and white. And now we add the sodium acetate. One drop. Okay. So observe what happened there. Okay. 2 more left with the lead-2 nitrate. And you want to be really careful that you don't mix things because it could change your results, so be very careful. So I'm putting 1 drop of the lead-2 nitrate in this grid. Okay. So now we're doing sodium carbonate mixed with that. So 1 drop of sodium carbonate and observe. Ooh. Okay, last one with the lead-2 nitrate. Okay, so 1 drop of lead-2 nitrate. And then lastly with the sodium hydroxide. I can get this open. Okay, 1 drop of sodium hydroxide. All right. So that is the first row. All right, so let's go this second line. So this time we're using silver nitrate going across horizontally. I can get this. has a different bottle. And it has a darker bottle because it's light sensitive. Okay, so we're going to put 1 drop of the silver nitrate. Same procedure. 1 drop of the silver nitrate. Okay. 1 drop of the silver nitrate. And we're going to do the same process. So first we're going to match it with the potassium iodide. I'm going to add 1 drop and see what happens. All right. So that's the silver nitrate with the potassium iodide. So record your observations for that reaction. Now we're going to match it up with the sodium chloride. So 1 drop. Between, oh, that one. There we go. So air bubble in that one. So we mix it with the sodium chloride. 1 drop of sodium chloride. Okay. That one not on the black too much, but it did go kind of white if you can't see that. Okay. Okay. So another drop of silver nitrate. Remember, going across the line. This air bubble is not. Okay. So 1 drop of silver nitrate. Goodness sakes. With the sodium sulfate. 1 drop. Okay, so observe your reaction there. Another drop of silver nitrate. Okay. And this time we're going to be mixing with sodium phosphate. And 1 drop of sodium phosphate mixed with the silver nitrate gives us that. Okay, a few more to go. So we add 1 drop of the silver nitrate. Okay. And the sodium acetate we're going to mix with it. So 1 drop of silver nitrate mixed with this 1 drop of sodium acetate. And that's what our reaction gives us. Okay, another drop of silver nitrate. We have 2 more to go. Oh, let's mix that over here. Try and see it. So we're going to mix that with the sodium carbonate. 1 drop of the sodium carbonate with the, you observe a color change there. All right, and last one with the silver nitrate. Let's get this right in the middle, in between them. Okay, last one, and we're mixing this with sodium hydroxide. And 1 drop of sodium hydroxide added to this silver nitrate gives us that. Okay, for this next line, we're going to be using calcium chloride. And in order to save time, I'm just going to put 1 drop of calcium chloride in each one, and then we'll add the other ones up top. So 1 drop of calcium chloride on each one. So 1. 1, 1, 1. Here, and one last one. There we go. Now all we have to do is just match them with the corresponding top liquids. Okay, first one is potassium iodide. 1 drop of that added. to the calcium chloride. If it will. Oh, give me a second. Okay. Drop there. And that's the reaction between calcium chloride and potassium iodide. Okay, so now we're going to be using the sodium chloride with the calcium chloride. Let's see what happens. Ooh. Okay, that's what happens between sodium chloride and calcium chloride. Okay, now it's the calcium chloride with the sodium sulfate. Okay, 1 drop of. Okay. The common theme with these two. Okay, now it's the calcium chloride with the sodium phosphate. Okay, add 1 drop of sodium phosphate to this calcium chloride. Okay, there's a reaction there. Okay, now we're doing the calcium chloride with the sodium acetate. So add 1 drop of sodium acetate to the calcium chloride. There we go. Okay. Now the calcium chloride, we're going to add the sodium carbonate. Add 1 drop of sodium carbonate to the calcium chloride. Ooh, there we go, we have a little something. Okay. And lastly, we're adding the sodium hydroxide to the calcium chloride. 1 drop of sodium hydroxide. There we go. Okay, so this next line is the copper 2 chloride. So I'm just going to do the same thing, go through and put 1 drop on each one in the middle. 1. Drop, and last drop. Okay, it already has kind of a blue tint. So now we're going to do the corresponding top values, or top solutions. Okay, first is the potassium iodide with the copper 2 chloride. It's 1 drop potassium iodide. Ooh, so it took a second. So observe that reaction. Next is the copper 2 chloride mixed with sodium chloride. So I'm going to do a drop of sodium chloride here. Okay, observe that reaction. Now it's the copper 2 chloride with the sodium sulfate. So 1 drop of sodium sulfate. There we go. Okay. Next, copper 2 chloride with sodium phosphate. So we're going to add 1 drop of sodium phosphate to the copper 2 chloride. Ooh, that was kind of cool. Okay, copper 2 chloride with sodium acetate is next. So add 1 drop of sodium acetate. We have that. See from the side. Okay. Next, copper 2 chloride with sodium carbonate. So we have 2 more. 1 drop of sodium carbonate. So that reaction. Okay. Next is copper 2 chloride with sodium hydroxide. Just 1 drop. Okay, that's the copper 2 chloride row. Okay, this last row is the iron 3 nitrate. So I'm going to do the same thing, put 1 drop of iron 3 nitrate across the row. Okay, 1 drop. So this is the iron 3 nitrate that I'm putting across. And I'm still getting it in between the black and the white as best as I can, so that way I can see both color change and precipitate form. Okay, so the iron 3 nitrate is across the row. Now we're doing the corresponding top values. So the first one is potassium iodide that I'll be adding to the iron 3 nitrate. So I'm adding 1 drop of potassium iodide to the iron 3 nitrate, and that's what it looks like. Okay. Next is adding sodium chloride to the iron 3 nitrate. So this is the sodium chloride drop adding to it. 1. Okay, that's what happened there. Okay, next is the sodium sulfate. So I'm going to add a drop of sodium sulfate to the iron 3 nitrate. Okay. Next is sodium phosphate. So I'm going to add 1 drop of sodium phosphate to the iron 3 nitrate. Here's that drop of sodium phosphate. Okay. Next is the sodium acetate. So I'm going to take this drop of sodium acetate and add it to the iron 3 nitrate. That's the sodium acetate. 2 more. Okay. Next is the sodium carbonate. So I'm going to add 1 drop of sodium carbonate to the iron 3 nitrate. That's sodium carbonate. And lastly, sodium hydroxide. So I'm going to add 1 drop of sodium hydroxide to the iron 3 nitrate. So here's sodium hydroxide. Okay? Now record all your observations in your lab report.